Good evening, and thank you for watching. My name is Nathan Brown. I cover the House of Representatives for the Arizona Capitol Times, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's Legislative District 5 Democratic primary debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections hosts debates so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Candidates that have a contested primary election have been invited to participate in this debate. Candidates that have opted into the Clean Elections Clean Funding Program are required to participate, while traditional candidates are invited and encouraged to attend. Please note, candidates from both the Senate and the House are participating in the debate tonight. When voting in a primary election, voters are choosing between candidates of the same political party, so their preferred nominee may advance to the general election. As the moderator, I will ensure candidates have the opportunity to engage directly with their respective opponents. The questions that will be asked this evening are coming directly from voters. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state, asking for questions for the candidates. Additionally, Clean Elections surveyed voters to learn what issues are important to them. This survey data, along with input from the experienced journalists at the Arizona Capitol Times, Arizona Agenda, Green Valley News, and Sahuarita Sun, have been utilized to guide the discussion so it best serves voters. Of course, we want to hear directly from you, the voter. So, voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email at debates@kc-a.com. That's debates@kc-a.com. By text message to 480-808-1814. That's 480-808-1814. Or by phone at 480-937-1253. That's 480-937-1253. Please specify if your question is for a specific candidate or all the candidates. We screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for an hour and a half, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. Candidates, you will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal today is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. Candidates running for the state Senate who are with us here tonight are, just one, Sarah Tyree. Candidates running for state House who are with us here tonight are Representative Sarah Ligori, Representative Jennifer Longden, Aaron Marquez, Representative Amish Shah, and Brianna Westbrook. And with that, let's start with our opening statements. Ms. Tyree, you want to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Good evening, Arizona. My name is Sarah Tyree, and I am your LD5 State Senate candidate. I am an Arizona native. I am a former foster care youth. I am an 8-year Army veteran and now social worker therapist. I am running today as your state Senate candidate in order to represent our state, full of diversity, full of LGBTQ people, full of our veterans. I want to represent you. I believe that we are moving towards a space we're ready for the next generation to step in and to be the leaders that we are calling for. And I'm here to be your representative as the millennial generation. So thank you for having me tonight, and please consider voting for me.
All right, thank you. Representative Ligori.
Hi, thank you. And hello to all the engaged voters tuning in tonight, and to the Clean Elections Commission and our moderator, Nathan. Thank you so much for putting this on. My name is Sarah Ligori. I currently represent the old Legislative District 28 and now 5, a district that I've lived in for the past 15 years. I am an Arizona native, a mom, and a longstanding leader in business and nonprofit groups here in the community. I ended up at the Capitol not because I was looking to become a politician, but because I was a concerned citizen that stood up to take action. My career experience in this state has always been anchored in my desire to help people build a better future. As a financial advisor, I dedicated my time to marginalized communities and local small businesses. I helped families build plans based on their dreams and worked with college students to attack their student loan debt and outline their futures. I know that Arizona is a state of hardworking people that built cities in this desert, but we can't let our water disappear, our communities and our rights suffer, leave our schools begging for funding, and let our democracy be traded for a lie. I want to remain your representative and continue to restore reason and empathy to our leadership so that this state reflects the genuine goodness of its people. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Representative Longden.
Thank you, Nate. I want to start by thanking you, Nate, for being our MC tonight, our moderator, and thanks to Clean Elections for hosting. I'm Jennifer Longden. I'm currently representing Legislative District 24 and hope to represent the new LD5. I'm the Assistant Democratic Leader in the Arizona House at this time. My journey here started when I was shot and paralyzed 18 years ago. And that began my record of service here in Arizona. I did 14,000 volunteer hours out of my home to help pass the Affordable Care Act. And I learned early in my own injury the importance of providing that social safety net. And, I learned the struggle that so many people do on maintaining housing, maintaining, choosing between food and medication and on and on. I raised my son here in the Arizona public school system from kindergarten through his 2 degrees at ASU, go Devils. And the work that I've done here in the state has carried me not only here through our state, but around the nation, including spending time at the White House with President Obama as he was preparing his executive action on gun violence. I hope to continue to serve you because I'm not done yet. And I'd like to be able to come back and continue the work that we've started together. I ask for your vote, and you can learn more about me at jenforaz.com, JENFORAZ.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marquez.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nate. I want to thank all of the candidates running tonight in District 5, the new legislative district that we get to compete to represent in this new decade. And I started my journey in Democratic politics way back in 2004. I dropped out of college and ended up working on the John Kerry campaign. I was a field organizer in the far West Valley. I had just spent 2 years in Boston with the AmeriCorps program City Year. And I said I was from Tempe, and they said, well, sorry, we're going to send you to Youngtown. I didn't really even know where Youngtown was at that point. But since 2004, I've been working to turn Arizona blue in one way or another. And that's really my focus in running for Legislative District 5. I don't think you're going to hear very much policy differences between the 5 of us running in the new District 5. But I can commit to all of the voters in District 5 and all Democratic voters across the state that my commitment is really going to be laser focused on one thing and one thing only. And that's going to be focused on getting us to a Democratic majority in the state House, the state Senate, and taking back the governor's office. Without one lever of power between those 3 levels of government, we're really playing defense all the time. And I'm ready to go on offense despite the redistricting that just took place here this last year. I've served in the Army Reserve for the last 12 years, deployed twice to Afghanistan. I came home after my last deployment to Afghanistan and started an organization here in Arizona called Vets Forward. Vets Forward actively works to engage veterans and local government from school board level all the way up to the federal level. And we're really trying to build a progressive ecosystem where people know that we're challenging the narrative that veterans and military families are not a conservative monolithic voting bloc. I decided to jump into this race really when January 6th happened. And I saw the attacks on our democracy. And those attacks on our democracy at the national level really started with people like Wendy Rogers and Anthony Kern here in Arizona. Those are the folks, Anthony Kern, Wendy Rogers, Mark Fincham, that we need progressive fighters down at the legislature challenging every single day. And when we're not at the legislature, we need to be fighting and calling folks across the country to support candidates in our competitive districts all over Arizona. I think that's the real priority of anybody that's elected in a Democratic majority district. And the last thing I'll say in closing is, as a father of a 7-year-old, I want to make sure that Arizona is providing the best education possible for her and for every student across the state. And that's why I serve currently as the at-large board member for Phoenix Union High School District. As the at-large board member for Phoenix Union High School District, I currently represent almost the entirety of the new LD5. And I want to represent the new LD5 in the legislature because I know as a school board member, there's only so much we can do to improve public education in Arizona unless we fight for more dollars for all of our schools. And I look forward to speaking with everybody tonight, and hopefully we can brainstorm the best ways to move Arizona forward, because I'd be happy with everybody on this call is a state representative. I just think I have the best opportunity to help us move towards a Democratic majority.
Nate, are we?
I think our moderator froze.
Shaw, I think you should just go.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you to the Clean Elections team, to our moderator, Nate Brown. Nate, I just started just in case. So you froze on us there for a second. Again, what a great exercise in democracy, everybody being able to be here and be on this call. So thank you to everybody out there listening to and being engaged in the process. My name is Amish Shah. I am currently serving in the Arizona House of Representatives with my seatmate Jennifer Longden. I was elected first 4 years ago. I am originally born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. My story is that I came from a household that was a little bit troubled and faced a lot of bullying when I was a kid and a lot of racism. It was pretty overt and open back then. And I was very lucky that in around 6th or 7th grade, a couple of teachers said to me, not only are you a good student, but you're a good person, and gave me a lot of confidence, changed the way things kind of were working there. And it gave me the confidence to be able to go on and do the kinds of things I really wanted to do. When I was a little kid, my grandma came to Chicago and had a heart attack on our couch. And ever since my parents took me to the hospital to look at her, I wanted to be a physician. So I was lucky because of teachers, guidance counselors. I was able to make my dreams come true and eventually become a physician. So I'm an emergency physician. I've been practicing throughout, like, for the last 15 years. I've also had, the chance to practice all throughout the pandemic, which was really, really rough on all of us. I am the only physician in the legislature. I'm one of 3 healthcare workers. I bring a lot of the healthcare policy expertise down to the Capitol. The biggest things for me that I want to leave you guys with is that ever since I started this on one idea that this would be a grassroots campaign from the very beginning. I started knocking on doors, and I knocked on 8,034 doors in my first campaign in order to win. And then I continued, even though last cycle we didn't have any competition, I still knocked 3,000 doors. And this year we've knocked about 5,000 doors. That's me personally. And that's and my volunteers also do a little bit of that in my staff. That's a real point of pride for me because I'm out there trying to listen to each and every one of you out there, talk to people, even people I disagree with, independents, Republicans, et cetera, and try to make sure that everybody has a voice, because it was my voice that wasn't heard when I was a little kid. So I think that's really, really important for me to bring out and to bring the best out of our democracy. I also don't take any special interest money. It's one of my big things. I only take individual contributions, and they're all transparent. And I think that's a point of pride for me as well. I also work to put a lot of legislation through the Arizona legislature. I think I've had more bills than any other Democrat that I know of. I think Sean Bowie gave me a little bit of a run for my money, both on knocking doors and on legislation. But I think this year we've had about 4 bills so far and a couple more coming. So that's a little bit about me. Again, I hope to earn your vote, and I'm glad I'm here with such wonderful candidates for the House and the Senate.
All right, Ms. Westbrook, it's your turn.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight. My name is Brianna Westbrook. I'm running for state representative in the district that I grew up in. My little brother was born at St. Joseph's Hospital in 1989. I experienced homelessness eviction in the northern part of this district in Sunny Slope. We slept in my mother's car for a week after that eviction. As a child growing up in poverty, my main source of food was dumpster diving every day. I directly witnessed substance abuse and experienced domestic violence. As a teenager, my great-grandparents took me in and taught me the value of hard work, and I worked on their apple orchard. At 27, I decided to come out as transgender after mustering up the courage. I documented my transition on YouTube to inspire others and normalize the experience of being transgender. In 2013, I testified in front of the Phoenix City Council in support of LGBTQ protections in housing and public accommodations. I questioned what politicians were doing at that time and decided to run for office. In 2018, I ran for Congress and in Congressional District 8. I was Arizona's first Justice Democrat, the organization that endorsed Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. After nearly winning that primary and obtaining 40% of the vote against 10-to-1 spending because of grassroots organizing, I decided to take my effort and focus it on directly impacting our state Democratic Party and was elected vice chair of our state Democratic Party. I spent 2.5 years dedicating my time to accountability and transparency and making sure that our state party is equitable for all people. I served as a field director for the Progressive Turnout Project in 2020 to help get out the vote for President Joe Biden. I also served as a national surrogate for the Bernie Sanders campaign and traveled the entire Southwest, spreading Bernie Sanders' message and helping win Nevada. What a great night that was. When the pandemic struck, I noticed that many politicians were not doing anything to help people. So I started a nonprofit to advocate for safe and affordable housing because I knew evictions were coming. Throughout 2020, over 500 homeless people died on our streets. That is simply unacceptable. Our unhoused population continues to grow in the city of Phoenix. This is for many reasons, and I hope to get into those reasons tonight. My name is Brianna Westbrook, and I'm running to be your state representative. I'm the people's candidate, and I hope to represent you.
All right, thank you. All right, so our first question, and we'll be going in the same order for this one as we did with the opening statements. So we'll start with Ms. Tyree. First question is, how would you work to protect our natural resources and deal with the looming water shortages in the future?
Thank you, Nathan. So I will be the first to admit that I am not an expert in water. And I think it's important for us to be able to acknowledge what we're not experts in and lean on the teams that we have to give us that knowledge. So I understand that we are in a water shortage, and one of the things that I do think that we should be looking at is how can we utilize more grass turf? And additionally, we should be talking about reclaimed water. I've had a number of conversations with community members about that, and they feel like, one, they don't know enough about reclaimed water, but two, there are concerns about if it's sanitary or not. And my understanding is that we use that water in other areas. And so why aren't we looking at more ways to expand that? And when we're talking about some of our other natural resources, we are literally leading in sunshine, and yet New Jersey is #1 in the nation for solar power. So Arizona definitely has a way to go, and I think that we absolutely can elect the people that'll make that happen.
All right, thank you. Representative Liguori, what would you do?
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of important questions, but I think that this is a big one, water in our state. And as Arizonans, we must understand the urgency to our water crisis. And I'm very glad that everyone is tuning their eyes and ears to this. I worked in commercial real estate. We did land development in Cochise County. And so one of the things that we did was make sure for long-term planning, we were going above and beyond to ensure water rights and that there was a sustainable water balance in the basins that we were pulling from, so we didn't overstress. And I think that looking in the rural areas, we need to continue to do that. I've worked for a long time as part of young leaders coalitions that have been ringing the alarm bells on the water crisis. So when I got to the legislature, I focused just on this, spending my time learning from the smart people in the room, whether it was Terry Goddard or Sandy Barr, the ADWR, trying to understand where can we start to plug some of these holes. And my biggest thing that I looked to was, well, how can we start to shift the needle to conservation? And living in a desert state, how can we start to even shift our mindset to understand that water is not an endless resource here? So one of the bills that was, that I ran and still has life, and I'm hoping can be brought out to the community this year, was a rainwater harvesting bill. Just, a very simple common sense approach to let residents capture the rainwater that comes down and then offset that to offset not just water use, but their landscaping bills, which are 60% of the water bills. A portion of your water bill that you have. So that was one of my approaches towards water. But I think as a community, we need to continue to have these discussions, and we need to bring everybody to the table to say, what are ways we can conserve? What are ways we can augment? Whether it's looking looking and asking the tough questions. Is it, agriculture that we need to start to augment from, or we need to start to move away from? I don't think that we're in a position where we can continue to put our heads in the sand anymore. We really need to address our impending water crisis, and we can see in the pictures now, it's in our faces, with Lake Mead levels dropping to the lowest record ever, the Colorado River running dry, and the extensive drought that we're on. So I'm very happy to be a part of these water conversations. And I will continue to ask the questions, and I will continue to make sure that we're learning from the best people in the room that have dedicated 10, 20 years of their life to understanding this. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Longden.
Thanks, Nate. So we've heard a couple of great concepts already mentioned by Ms. Tyree and Rep. Lagori. Her rainwater harvesting bill is just amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing it get passed. We absolutely need to do work on conservation and figure out what augmentation looks like. We have some immediate issues. For example, our snowpack doesn't make it to the river anymore because the way that wildfires have built up a crust on the alluvial fan, the way the mountains cascade down and let the water generally flow. We have to do more work in our forests to prevent wildfires there. And a lot of this is work that we're learning about through input from our important stakeholders. We cannot talk about water in Arizona without talking about our indigenous communities, the 22 tribes here in Arizona. Many of them have, prime water rights, first in time, first in line for water. Certainly, we're talking to communities and other important constituencies like the Sierra Club and Chispa and community members overall. The needs inside the cities are different than the needs of our rural farmers, and we need to listen to both because while many of us live in our cities, we all like to eat. Ms. Tyree mentioned direct potable reuse, and honestly, I hope people aren't nearly as afraid of it. I hope that they become less afraid of it because we're already doing that. Las Vegas dumps their effluent from their toilets after it's been cleaned into Lake Mead. We pump our drinking water out of Lake Mead, so we're already doing direct potable reuse. We're just doing it with Las Vegas's water. There are a lot more things that we can do. We can pave the canals, we can cover the canals, we can do more to reduce the heat index here in our cities by using more white pavement and painting roofs white and that sort of thing. There are a million things we can do. We just need to get started. We're going to have to take out our grass. We need to live like desert dwellers. We are desert creatures, and we need to act that way. And unfortunately, communities that have built artificial lakes are probably going to see those drained over the next couple of years because that water needs to go back into the reservoirs. We're 23 feet from hitting the top of the turbines at Glen Canyon Dam, where a lot of our electricity is generated. If they have to stop the turbines, then the Grand Canyon goes dry. And we can't allow that to happen. And at this point in time, by engineering, they're not exactly sure how to overcome that. Can they open the intakes on each side? We don't even know how to do that at this point in time. Best thing for us to do is to work hard to keep as much water as we can in the reservoirs and use as little as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marquez?
Yeah. I might sound like a broken record tonight. I think, when I think about politics and, the work we do and the folks that are lucky to serve at the legislature get to do, it's a public manifestation of our values. And, I've lived in Arizona since 1986, since I was 3 years old. And during that entire time, I've never seen a Democratic majority. I think we've had a few Democratic governors. And until we change the dynamics at the legislature, the governor's office or one of the chambers the public manifestation of our values to conserve our environment are going to take a backseat to corporate interest that the other side, the Republican Party, really puts forward first. So I think that's the number one thing. I think, Representative Longden, Sarah Tyree, fellow Army veteran, Representative Liguori, all present great ideas, and I think we're all going to go to the same people. I worked for Terry Goddard in 2010. I was his political director when he ran for governor, and I would go to Terry too. I would say, Terry, what should we do? I would go to Sandy Barr. When I ran for the legislature in 2014, I was endorsed by the Sierra Club. These are all the folks that are the experts, and I think a part of being a good elected official is we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen more than we talk. And we should make sure we're listening to the experts on every issue and have an open door to talk to all sides and really weigh the best way forward. But my experience these past few years, since I've been home for my last deployment in 2016 and 2017, is just that the Republican Party in Arizona has become more and more extreme, and they're not going to take any action to put money into anything like water conservation. Representative Longden, I agree with you. I live in Willow, and we got a lot of grass in Willow. I think the folks in Tucson have set the example right. It's all about conservation. But whether we're investing in potable water programs in Guatemala, when I worked with the Army, we invested in similar programs to help the people down there get access to clean water. But here in Arizona, the priority is really conservation. And I think that's what we have to stay focused on. But any money we put into conservation is only possible if we have a chance to flip the legislature or flip at least one of the chambers. And that's where we can start to force compromise on these issues that are critical for the remainder of our lives, but the next generation, for our children and our grandchildren's lives. Protecting the environment is the absolute most important thing that all of us should be focused on in our roles as elected officials.
All right, Representative Shah.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Vitally important. One of the first things we did when Representative Longden and I came in as freshmen 4 years ago was the drought contingency plan. It was a moment of bipartisan cooperation. I believe it passed unanimously all throughout, and Democrats were able to negotiate conservation measures into that package way back when. I hope that I want to echo a lot of what I heard. Started out with Sarah Tyree, who said that she wasn't the expert in it. And well, I'm going to put myself in that category too. I'm a physician, and no, I'm not the expert on water, but I do have my seatmate, Jennifer Longden, who was on the Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee for a couple of years. And so I tend to listen to her. For those of you who didn't hear, she said alluvial fan. And I really was not aware of that concept until just now. So, but the concepts that we've learned after 4 years in the legislature are management of surface water, meaning the Colorado River, management of the groundwater, and I'm not sure anybody talked about the aquifers just yet, but it's basically what's happening is that you can just go out, drill a hole, pump as much as you want out of there, and that's not going to get recharged. I remember Representative Longden's comments from actually just very recently that as that aquifer gets depleted, it's not like a sponge. You can't just refill it, and it causes sinkholes, and it's going to cause a lot more problems for us going forward. So yes, all of the above, and then finally the idea of yes, conservation. So yeah, grass. You usually really shouldn't have grass, and we should become desert dwellers, and there's a lot of other proposals out there to help stop us. I mean, again, I have talked a little bit about the idea of building up rather than building out as far as our development goes, because again, then more people will not have lawns to put water into. So again, I hope that our stakeholders will come together on this, and we come together with a comprehensive plan to meet the needs of the entire state.
All right, Ms. Westbrook.
Thank you. A lot of great ideas have been brought forth. I want to remind people this is a very Democratic district. Votes Democratic 69-31. So we need bold ideas, right? And the reality is corporations have dictated the price and availability of our water resources for far too long. They've continued to raise the rates on our water and often making it so expensive that it prices people out, particularly poor people, right? Anytime that there's a shortage of water or resources, the poor people feel it first. I believe that we need to make sure that everyone has access to water, regardless of their income level. What happens oftentimes, water companies frequently enter into these large agreements with government agencies, and they get exclusive rights to distribution for 25 to 30 years, effectively creating a monopoly. Consumers, basically, Arizonans, are forced to accept whatever terms are offered and the lack of competition. I believe that what we need to do is end privatized water. I believe that we need to move forward toward a public ownership and regulation of our water sources in Arizona, and all stakeholders need to be included in that conversation. That way we can actually have an effective water management system that includes all voices in our community. This would ensure democratic oversight of our water alignment with local residents and our priorities, and allow us to manage our precious resources rather than allowing it to be dictated by a small group of stakeholders with a large amount of money.
All right, thank you. And we'll start with Representative Liguori on this next question. What will you do to improve access to and the quality of mental health services and therapy in Phoenix?
Thank you for that question. I think that that's a great one because I think that mental health services and access to behavioral health care and mental health care, we can look at being the root and the foundation of a lot of these other problems that we're experiencing in society. So for me, I like to work backwards, and I like to look at a person and say, okay, how can we help you where you need to be helped? And I think that deploying resources, funding that not just keeps up with funding cuts that have been done to mental and behavioral health care over the past couple of years, but then make sure that it's ongoing and sustainable and to meet the demands and the needs of our communities is where we need to be looking when we're prioritizing stuff within the budget, which is a big place that I have looked at, because if we are not helping people deal with the issues that they are experiencing in life, especially the trauma of the pandemic, the trauma of whatever they might have been experiencing, then we are kind of continuing on this pattern that we're seeing in our societies where we're not helping humans where they need to be helped. So prioritizing funding, increasing fundings to just the minimum that they need, and then adding on to that year over year. So it's reoccurring funding to behavioral and mental health cares, whether it's development and disability, outpatient, going into the communities and making sure that these homes and transitional housing that are supporting these very vulnerable people of our society have access to the resources that they need, and the people are getting the treatment, whether it's counseling or medicine or programs, so that they can become healthy and whole and contributing citizens as they deserve to be. But I think that the real issue is we need to stabilize funding, increase funding, and make sure that we deploy that capital out to these organizations and our community resources that are desperately needed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Longdon?
Nate, would you repeat the full question for me, please?
Yeah, sure. What will you do to improve access to and the quality of mental health services and therapy in Phoenix?
Thanks, I appreciate that. So we've already passed a bill to allow for telehealth to continue, because what we find is that, especially with psychiatry, there aren't enough folks licensed to do that work here in the state. So being able to be a psychiatrist sitting in New York or New Mexico or wherever and see clients is also important. We've done some work around funding of these services. Certainly we need more parity for mental health as compared to other types of health. To me, mental health and physical health go hand in hand. There is also a lack of juvenile behavioral health services available. And so there aren't as many opportunities to spot those problems for kids. And that's a place where increasing school counselor ratio inside of schools lowering that ratio means that more children will be seen by professionals who may recognize their issues and be able to begin engaging in the services. We need to make sure that we're providing additional funding and that we write rules that require insurance companies to cover mental health care. And that we are treating folks with mental illness or behavioral health issues as people who are ill, the same way we would treat someone who has diabetes or a heart condition or high blood pressure, rather than criminalizing individuals who are experiencing mental health issues. I think Representative Liguori had a lot to say, and I know Rep. Shaw has worked a lot on this, so I'm going to leave it there and save time for others. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Marquez.
Yeah, I just want to say up front, before I came to this clean elections debate tonight, I was at the Phoenix VA hospital, and I was there for my own mental health care appointment. I don't know a veteran that doesn't need mental health care support. During my time in the Phoenix Union School Board, this has been a top priority for every single board member in our district. We have 27,000 students. We have 5,000 plus staff members that serve the Phoenix Union community. And I hope if the pandemic has taught our society and our government anything, it's that there's so many people that feel isolated before the pandemic and during the pandemic that need mental health care support. So I think in our roles as elected officials, whatever we can do to destigmatize mental health care is absolutely important. Representative Longden makes a great point. Decreasing the ratio or increasing the number of counselors in our public schools. We have 27,000 students, and I guarantee you we don't have enough counselors, whether they're academic or mental health care counselors, to triage all of the needs of all of our students. One of the things we've done in Phoenix Union is we've introduced I-Days during the pandemic for teachers and students to make sure that they have a day to decompress, because going to school during a pandemic and working during a pandemic has been really hard on all of our teachers and students. So looking towards policies in the workforce that encourage proactive mental health care and employee support is definitely important. All of these things cost money. And I know the folks that are currently elected to District 24 and District 28 are down there fighting the Republicans to put more money into the budget. But all of these things that we're talking about are going to cost money, and we can't do them unless all of us stay focused on getting to a Democratic majority. And I think that's the number one priority is making sure our budget reflects our values. And if it really does reflect our values, all of us should be investing more in mental health care, whether that's more money from the state that goes into school districts, more money from the states that goes to counties for adult mental health care. Everybody needs it. And I'm proud that I found support in the veterans community to help me understand that I need it myself.
All right, Representative Shaw.
Thank you. Great idea so far, Representative Liguori, Representative Longden, Aaron. All good stuff. Mentioned a lot of great things in there. I'll just tell you my personal story with this is that I practiced in New York City. I'm an emergency physician, and I practiced in New York City for a long time, and at a big teaching hospital, and also some small ones. There is a night and day difference. When I came to Arizona for the first time and started practicing in the emergency departments, I could not believe the night and day difference between a state where you have a well-funded and resourced mental health system versus what we have here. A long time went by before I ever saw a psychiatrist in the emergency department as a colleague to sort of be able to hand off patients and discuss care. And you could feel it right away, the difference there. So from a personal perspective, you can see that the resources are just night and day difference, very much a paucity of it, a real lack of it here. Then I start doing this from a political standpoint and knocking on doors, and I hear this from people at the doors. They have formed groups like NAMI to try to talk about why is it that this is happening and what can we do about it. So we get this question quite a lot while knocking on the doors too, and I could feel that people are lacking in these services. A couple of years ago, to kind of frame this a little bit from a policy perspective, on the access side, we did pass a law Jake's law that does get us to mental health parity, which is a good thing. It was bipartisan, it moved forward, and that was a great thing to sort of help that side. It's still not perfect. I still believe that we need more access, more funding for access, as was mentioned by several others here. But then the other real big issue is the private side. And what's happening out there is that there are a lot of psychiatrists, and I'm very close with the Arizona Psychiatric Society, just like with all the other physician groups out there. But what they're talking about is that the payment structures are so low that what it's doing is forcing a lot of physicians to go into these cash only practices, and so there's not enough physicians available to actually handle everything that's out there in the population. That gets to a concept, sorry, getting wonky and technical here, but it's called network adequacy, and that means that the insurance company does have to maintain a network which is adequate to serve the needs of the population. That needs to be looked at for the private side, because if people just simply have insurance, if I have insurance, but if I have fire insurance and they're not going to cover me after I have a fire, that's not really insurance. And the same thing here. We have to make sure that if you have health insurance and it includes mental health, then you of course need to have access to those services in a practical way when that happens. That isn't effectively happening out there. So that private side needs a real look. And then, we mentioned some of the special populations. Aaron, thank you for your service, Aaron, and bringing up the veterans issue. Absolutely. I also sponsored, I've been working with this group called Fourth Trimester Arizona. We did a Maternal Mental Health Month declaration just like a week or two ago. And part of what we want to do is truly highlight a couple bills that are running through. One was mine, which I got into a committee and passed through the committee. It was the one that extends postpartum care. It actually it gives you incentives to the OBGYNs for those folks on access up to 6 weeks afterward, so that they get their 6-week postpartum checkup. That's important because that's where you'll find some of this stuff, the maternal mental health, like postpartum depression. Then actually there's a Republican who's running another bill to bring the postpartum care to 1 year, to cover it 1 year postpartum. Obviously it has the support of a lot of almost all Democrats. And that's a really good thing that we should try to get into the budget, because that means that we're covering everything that happens postpartum, and that will also include maternal mental health. So all of these things sort of put together well, that's my 2-minute answer, so I don't want to go too far over, but that's a lot to cover. But yeah, there's a lot of proposals to help move that forward.
All right, Ms. Westbrook.
Well, mental health care is healthcare, right? And healthcare is a human right. So as your state representative, I'm going to advocate for a universal healthcare system. So nobody is left out, regardless of their income or their zip code. And I can say that with confidence because my campaign and myself feel very, very strongly about this. My grandfather has diabetes and he's had to take insulin. It's raked up, a significant amount of hospital bills. If it hadn't been for Medicare, he would have died. The reality is that the for-profit healthcare industry has bought politicians. We have politicians actually on this call that have taken money from United Healthcare, Cigna, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And the reality is, in order to actually get effective policy in regards to healthcare, we need to take the corporate money out of politics. And that is very easy to do, right? It just takes the courage to say no. That's it. And if we all collectively do that, like a district like this, for example, we can actually have a representative government of the people. This district is very liberal, very democratic. There's no reason why nobody on this call should actually have to run private. We could actually run as clean elections candidates if we all took that commitment. But the reality is we haven't. If you elect me to be your state representative, not only will I fight for a universal healthcare system, I will fight to make this district a clean elections district. And we can do that because this is a Democratic district. We saw in the old historic LD 26, there was a slate of blue candidates, right? Republicans can't win there. Republicans can't win here. So if we all collectively came together and said no to private money, no to corporate PAC money, we could make this district a shining light and fight back against some of these huge corporate attacks. I believe that we need to make sure that everybody has access to mental health care. And this includes our LGBTQ community. Many of our LGBTQ members have been harmed by things like conversion therapy. There's a representative on this call that actually has advocated for a bill that was masked as a non-discrimination bill. that actually contributed to the violence in our LGBTQ community. That's unacceptable. And as your state representative, I will fight like heck for every single person in this district, no matter where you live or what your income is. We will fight for universal health care. We will build coalitions with Republicans. We will build coalitions with moderate Democrats. And we will build coalitions, most importantly, with community organizations, because that's the only way we're going to create progress, is by collectively coming together to create this change.
All right, Ms. Tyree, it's your turn.
Absolutely, thank you. I've been waiting because this is my area of expertise as the mental health provider on the call. I'm so excited about this topic. Brother Marquez, thank you for being open and honest about receiving treatment, because it's so important for us to destigmatize the things that literally almost every American experiences. And for us, for veterans, it's a little bit different. So I just want to thank you for being vulnerable with all of us, with all of Arizona, and talking about that today. So many things have been mentioned, and I love to hear all of these different things, these different ideas that are going on. But the fact is that we don't consider mental health as healthcare. It has always been two separate things. And until we take care of the mind and the body at the same time, we're not going to be whole. We're not going to be healthy, and we're not going to be productive residents of Arizona. We have to take care of mental health just as much as we take care of the body. So for me, as your state senator, I look forward to putting forth a bill that would make healthcare, mental health care free. So when women go for their women's exam, and then eventually you go for your prostate exam, those are considered preventative. You have no copay in that capacity. And I believe that therapy should and could be the same. Everybody should have access to therapy, not just people who have great insurance. When we talk about the different communities that are being impacted and are not getting help, specifically our youth, there are so many communities of color, there are refugees, there are immigrants, there's the LGBTQ community. There are so many communities who don't have access and don't have the education about what mental health truly is. I work with a number of Indigenous folks, and I'm contracted, and none of them have any idea about what child abuse is. They have no idea. They don't know what PTSD is or addiction is when we're talking about things outside of alcoholism. There's so much knowledge to be shared. And I think that as your state senator, as your representatives here on this call, it is our duty to use the platforms that we have to educate our communities about these services, about what it looks like, and that it is okay to seek help. So as your state senator, I look forward to pushing forward our mental health care and making sure that every Arizonan has access to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll start with Representative Longden on this next question. What is your plan to help address homelessness in our district?
Thanks for this, Nate. I really appreciate it. So homelessness has absolutely grown, exploded since the pandemic. You only need to drive a mile on the streets of LD24 to see that in action, right? The number of individuals living on the street has just absolutely exploded. And now I'm seeing families with small children, more and more folks living in cars. We need to add $100 million to the Housing Trust Fund, first off, for pre-eviction stabilization. The more we can keep a person in or people in their home that they already have and keep them off the streets, the better off we are. And then there's a lot of that money there as well to help with the issue of homelessness. I believe in housing first initiatives where we get people into housing and then work to solve whatever issues led to their homelessness, whether it's unemployment or health issues or addiction issues or domestic violence. In the past models, folks had to demonstrate sobriety for a certain period of time before they could go into shelter. And that's not really helpful for folks who are already living on the streets. Last summer alone, my team worked to raise enough money to move 30 people into shelter at Cass for a month each. And in the summer, a month in shelter can be the difference between life and death. During that period of time, those individuals received supportive services that help them move into permanent supported housing. $750 is all it takes to take an adult off the streets and put them into Cass for 30 days. $750. And so while the state and the cities and the county need to be doing so much more, we as individuals can also help with this issue. I don't want us criminalizing homelessness. These are individuals who need a hand up, and there's so much work that we can do together to get that done. We have to deal with the cost of housing, which has exploded, and I believe in part that's due to wholesale buyers. Wholesale buyers come in and buy these properties and just flip them right away. And so we just passed a piece of legislation that requires wholesale buyers to make a disclosure. I would tell you in my neighborhood, if my neighbors knew that the person trying to buy their house was a wholesale buyer, they wouldn't sell it to them, and they wouldn't be required to under this. They won't be required to under this law. And that applies for the sale of residential properties up to 5 units. We also need to deal with the short-term rental issue. That has also, excuse me, I'm going to yield here, please.
All right, Mr. Marquez, it's your turn.
Yeah, and Jen, let us know if you want to jump back in. I was knocking on doors recently off of 7th Avenue and between Thomas and Osborne, and I knocked on doors in an apartment complex there. Door after door within the same apartment complex, I started hearing the same exact story. I met a woman who said that she had lived in this apartment complex for 25 years, and older woman on a fixed income, and said, you know what, they're renovating this place, and I only have until August, and they're going to raise the rent from $700 to $1,700. She said 80% of the people that live in this apartment complex are Section 8, and we don't have anywhere else to go. So I think affordable housing is number one. I hear stories like that every day when I'm knocking on doors, talking to people in District 5, people that are struggling. So I think affordable housing is the number one issue. Stopping practices. I think many years ago there was a guy that ran for president who said the rent is too damn high, and in Arizona that is absolutely true. I have been fortunate because I went to Afghanistan that I was able to use the VA home loan, but there's no way I could afford the home that I get to live in today without a zero down opportunity. As a school board member in Phoenix Union, I've proposed similar initiatives. Could there be a VA home loan for teachers in our state? Making sure that it's affordable for teachers to live close and in proximity to where they serve the students every single day. So I think things like that are powerful. Keep folks in homes before they go through the crisis of trying to figure out how to manage life in a state of homelessness. I think those are the number one priorities. But like I've said with all my answers, all of these proposals, I'm sure we could brainstorm this entire night between the 5 and 6 of us. How do we end homelessness in Arizona? All of those ideas are going to cost money. And until we've changed the dynamics of the legislature, we're not going to be able to put that money into these proposals or these ideas that we're going to brainstorm together tonight.
All right, Representative Shah.
Does Jen want to finish the rest?
Yeah,
No, it's okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard great ideas here so far. I mean, we have had several different things that we've tried to do in the legislature to try to mitigate this. Some of these ideas we've put actual into bills, and some of them are still just sort of ideas that are out there. 100% agree that we're seeing a massive rise in the price of housing, right? I mean, and that is really hurting people. I'm hearing it. I'm seeing it. Again, like Aaron was knocking doors. I'm knocking doors, and I'm hearing what people are saying. My rent. I don't know if I can afford it. I'm worried about when my lease comes due. What am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? How much are they going to raise it? And I keep hearing that, and that really hurts because you don't want people to feel insecure about where they're going to live. Of course, as the rents start going up, then you see people starting to get evicted more systematically on a wholesale basis, and that is not a good thing to see, because I feel like having in a country like ours, having a roof over your head is something we should be able to guarantee every single person in this country. So we have to think about what can we do to mitigate the cost of rent, because that is going to lead to homelessness. If you speak to Cass, and we've spent a lot of time speaking to Lisa Glow, who's over at Cass, about what we can do. There's a lot of things we can do to look at the homelessness issue. They talk about the permanent part. They talk about the transitory part. So attacking the transitory part gets down to a lot of things like this. So the Housing Trust Fund was mentioned. I will say that for District 24, Senator Lee Lawson has spent a lot of time pushing these bills year after year after year. And myself and Representative Longden have supported these year after year to try to push these into the budget and make sure that we are supporting people in housing. This year, there's actually been a giant push. About $150 million is actually being talked about, which is great. I'm just glad to hear it. So that's out there. There's a little known thing known as the Elderly Assistance Fund. I found out about it because I was knocking doors, and somebody, a senior, told me that they were dependent on it. It helps them pay property taxes that are out there that they can't afford. And so again, getting that back out there would be really wonderful to see. I had a bill to actually last year that did get signed into law and did push a new expansion of a new homeless shelter that was directed by Cass last year. So we got that done, which was really great. We had there was this P90 money that was made in some deals of legislators. We're told that you can use some of this in organizations. So I contacted nonprofits in LD24. So it was Circle the City that got funded with a couple $100,000, I believe, or $250,000 via Del Sol. And then also a majority of it I wanted to go to Cass to expand the bed. So we did pump a lot of money into Cass through the Housing Authority into that to help them expand, so we can take in more people. There is also LIHTC, low income housing tax credit. A lot of people, feel there's some mixed emotions on that. Is it going to developers, et cetera? But honestly, right now we need more supply. There has to be more supply, because we're just facing extraordinary demand and not enough supply, and that's causing all of this to happen. I'm glad Representative Longden mentioned short-term rentals. I spoke to the folks over at Scottsdale, which used to be in our district, and they were telling us how 8,000 to 10,000 units are being occupied in this way, and that isn't. Those are units that could be used for families and neighborhoods and stuff, and instead they're being used. Look, I don't mind if something's owner occupied, but this is proliferated so much that it's displacing other people, and I can't. I can't be okay with that if that's how this is all going to go. Finally, the wholesale buyer, 100%. Wall Street is coming in here, buying up a bunch of houses because they know they can make money off either the short-term rental or the flippings. And that's not right. When people are suffering from what we're dealing with here out on the street, and you see it isn't right. So I'm glad that we are pursuing legislation to sort of kind of help mitigate that problem and say to people, look, this isn't just like, I don't know, something that you can invest in that's a luxury item. No, this is housing that everybody deserves access to. So that's a lot to cover. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Westbrook.
This very important question, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I'm the only person on this call that has maybe experienced homelessness and lived in a car for a week. Sarah. So this is an issue that's really close to my heart and was one of the main reasons why I decided to run for this office. For years here in Phoenix, literally for over a decade, we've been talking about the issue of the growing unhoused community, and it's only started to snowball even more with the rise in evictions and the unaffordable housing that we have in downtown Phoenix. I think most importantly, it takes standing up to the big banks and the developers. As a individual that has pledged to take no corporate PAC money, I'm not going to take money from the Realtors Association. I'm not going to take money from Citigroup and all of these groups that are predators, they're predatory capitalists, let's call them what they are. They're coming into downtown Phoenix and they're buying property. There's an investment group that bought over 570 houses in Central Phoenix, and many of those turned into B&Bs. And the reality is that's what they're doing, right? They're buying properties and they're turning into short-term rentals. So what we need to do is a multi-pronged approach, right? I believe that we need to build more houses and actually put people in homes and wrap them in the services that they need to move on from the experience of homelessness, right? Making sure that they have access to mental health care, making sure they have access to work and job placement, making sure that we help people in this moment rather than criminalizing them and putting them behind bars, rather than doing a sweep and putting people behind bars, because that's what we've done historically, right? We've put people in prisons rather than building houses. And it starts with having compassion and empathy, right? We need compassion and empathy in our government, because the reality is we have more in common with the individual that's sleeping at the bus stop than we do Jeff Bezos. And we need to have a reckoning as a society and realize that. And that person at the bus stop could easily be us. So we need to make sure that we fund these social safety nets, wrap people in housing and services, right? We need to raise the wage, because we know that the cost of living in Arizona now, we need to make north of $20 an hour. And we just don't earn that. We need to cap rent, right? That's something that wasn't mentioned on this call. We need to make sure that landlords don't raise the rent 20%, 50% on a family that's going month to month. Right now, under state law, that's acceptable. A landlord can change the rent with 30 days notice if they're month to month. So I put a lot of thought into this issue because, like I said, this is something close to me. And I've thought about what it'll look like if we're in minority or if we're in the majority. And I know one thing that I want to do for sure is make sure that we amend and strengthen the Landlord-Tenant Act to ensure that tenants have protection. We need to extend that time that a landlord has to increase the rent longer than 30 days, because the reality is families need the plan, right? Because you're not going to be able to find a home in 30 days that you can afford. So these people end up on the streets. So as a state representative, this is an issue that's close to my heart, and I will fight to make sure that the individual that's sleeping at the bus stop a half a block away from me, her voice is just as strong, as important as the person that's tuning into this call tonight. Because like I said, we have more in common with that individual than we do Jeff Bezos. And it's just centering our policies and compassion and empathy. And I can promise you that's what I'll do as your state representative.
All right, Ms. Tyree.
Thank you so much. First, I want to start by saying that the representative that said homelessness is bad, it's a bad thing, clearly has not experienced homelessness themselves. To be in your car, to be sleeping in a storage unit, to be sleeping on the streets, and to say it's bad, unacceptable. It's unacceptable. You literally have the power to make changes. You literally have the power to be bold and to fight. And yet, Brianna, myself, other progressive people told you years ahead of time that this was going to happen. And now we're here. And we're watching people, watching children, we're watching families be put on the street because nobody acted. So when we talk about homelessness, we have to talk about the crime-free lease addendum. And understanding that not all housing is affordable housing, but the housing that is and that falls under this right here directly impacts those people who end up being unsheltered. Because there are laws in there that criminalize people who have done nothing wrong. There are laws in there that are predatory specifically to women of domestic violence and their families. And we continue to allow it. In fact, in 2019, a legislator in the West Valley put forth a bill that says if you, a renter, use any type of rental assistance at all, and you pay with that rental assistance, your landlord can legally evict you because you broke the contract saying that you could pay it yourself. And it was signed into law. Unacceptable. It's unacceptable that this is happening. And when I asked that specific legislator in a debate why that happened, he said a landlord came to him about a woman who was a continual domestic violence survivor, and he couldn't evict her because she paid with rental assistance. So he created that law to punish a survivor. You're putting women and children on streets because she's a survivor. She didn't ask to be assaulted. She didn't ask to be a nuisance in your community. Those laws need to be amended and they need to be changed. In addition, I have what I like to call the second chance law. And what that law does is it takes 50 to 100 local businesses, 50 to 100 local landlords who are willing to opt into this program. They get trauma training, they get de-escalation training, they get a $5,000 liability policy if they are willing to either house or employ the unsheltered. We get people off the streets, we give them employment, and we're taking care of their mental health. It's literally a win for everybody. We're stabilizing the economy, we're taking care of our people, and we're putting people to work. And all in all, if let's say we did 100 businesses within the first 5 years, that's $500,000 out of the general fund. It's literally pennies. We can make it work, we just choose not to. So when you elect me as your state senator, I will be boldly fighting to protect everybody, not just the people who have money and don't have to worry about their housing, but those who don't have the voice to do so either.
All right, Representative Liguori.
Thank you. Another great topic that is awful, and it's in our communities, and it's one we can't look away from, nor should we look away from. And so in my experience working in real estate, we worked on building affordable communities. And one of the things that I was very concerned about many years ago as we were coming out of the Great Recession was that we weren't picking up enough single family housing permits. We stopped building in Phoenix, during that downturn for almost 18 months. And so from that, we've been in a hole ever since. So right now we're down about 150,000 units in Phoenix, 150,000 units. That's something that will take years to catch up on if we ever do. The other issue that I saw that I was very concerned about is that we were only building luxury apartments, luxury townhomes, very unattainable, the opposite of affordable. But that seems to be the glutton of where the developers wanted to go because it made the most sense for their bottom line. So I apply the same strategy to affordable housing. It was an issue I came in very eager when I started at the legislature to be a part of these conversations. I apply the same mentality that I did to water to the affordable housing. It's a leaky bucket analogy. There's not one solution. So we have to address each specific area of this crisis, whether it's the housing supply, reasonable density increases through city planning and zoning, wraparound services that we can get out to communities to eliminate relapse, using ARPA funds for affordable housing, access to mental health care, which is proven to be cheaper and more holistic and the right thing to do for members of our community. And really the crux of it that I see is better paying jobs. So we can stop the slide of people going into or experiencing housing insecurity. There's people with jobs living in their cars right now. They're being pushed farther and farther away from the communities they grew up in. They're removing their children from school because they can no longer live in the area that their school is, if they're renting. So, I look back and I say, okay, if I was me 5 years ago, I wouldn't be able to afford the place that I was renting. I wouldn't be able to afford my first house. I wouldn't be able to afford this, family home, our forever home that we're in now. I wouldn't be able to afford any of that in present day Phoenix, where, studio or one bedroom rents are going for $1,300 a month and being called affordable. So as I mentioned, when I got down to the legislature, let's do something about it. What can we do? So I co-sponsored legislation on eviction prevention, funding the Housing Trust Fund. We have $100 million tied to that from Senator Alston. Rental assistance, I think we need to end preemption and strengthen tenants' rights. Those were the pieces of legislation I sought out and co-sponsored because I believe that these are all part of the leaky bucket strategy when it comes to affordable housing. And I think it's something we need to keep ongoing like water. We need to bring the stakeholders into the room. We need to bring the economists. The Morrison Institute has been putting out great research on this. I've worked with Arizona Community Foundation. They are going out and deploying things into this community right now and spearheading conversations from leaders across the country and our state so we can start to do this. But if I had a magic wand, I would want to get better paying jobs to people right now so that the 30% rental increases they're experiencing are in line with how much they're making in their paycheck. So that's my response to affordable housing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. We'll start with Mr. Marquez on the next question. The Supreme Court is expected to issue a ruling on Roe v. Wade within the next month or so, and it looks like they may be planning on overturning it entirely. If that does happen, what will you do to fight for abortion rights in Arizona?
Yeah, I think we should expect this ruling from the Supreme Court. I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood every time I've ran for office, whether that's school board or my 2014 race for the legislature. I try to listen on this issue and learn and how to be a good fighter for reproductive justice. And, what I understand about Arizona laws as they currently exist, we have archaic laws from our territorial days that are still on the books that as soon as this ruling goes into effect, will get triggered. And so our rights, Brianna's right, healthcare is a right, and abortion care is a right, are under attack. And the foundation of these attacks is attacks on our democracy. So whatever two of us get to represent Legislative District 5 at the legislature, we have to go down there ready to fight. I've been a fighter in Afghanistan for our country, and I'm going to fight on the House floor to make sure that we challenge whatever the Republicans come up with next. But immediately, it's about repealing the existing laws on the book from the territorial days. It's about repealing the law that Governor Ducey just signed into law, and making sure that abortion care is available to everyone. Every single person in Arizona has a right to abortion care. And that needs to be a fight that as elected officials that we join on the House floor. And if we need to join in the courtroom as well, we shall be prepared to join that fight to make sure in a post-Roe world that everybody, all people in Arizona have access to abortion care.
All right. Representative Shah.
Thank you. Yep, I agree with what Aaron said. Everybody has right to abortion as healthcare. Again, personal for me as a physician, we believe very, very strongly from the time of medical school in patient autonomy. You should be able to make these decisions with your doctor, and you don't need the government in there. The question was, what are we going to do about it? And so over the last couple of weeks, I actually, as soon as this thing came out, I heard about this idea of getting people together to get an initiative out there. And so I made some phone calls and spoke to some of our stakeholders, Planned Parenthood. It was a lawyer who gets involved in a lot of the initiative process. The Arizona College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, with whom I have a really good relationship, and we work together on exactly these kinds of issues. And so we talked about it a little bit, and ultimately they have decided to go with a constitutional amendment. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us, every last one of us, to grab those. What's challenging about this is that there is a deadline of July 7th. And by that time, it's about 500,000 signatures that are necessary to get this thing on the ballot. I think we can do it. I think we can do it if we all pull together and work hard. It's a lot, but I certainly will tell you that I'm going to go and pick them up as soon as they are readily available, and let's get them out there and let's get signatures, and let's try to get that on the ballot and put that into the Arizona Constitution if we can. I believe that there is the momentum. I feel the energy out there that I think that this could actually get on the ballot and then win, because we know that the public opinion is with us on this in big numbers. So yeah, and we'll just continue to fight. I mean, in the meantime, we'll just if there are laws that, I mean, we already know there are laws on the books that are draconian, but if there are laws on the books that are coming, we will continue to fight those things. I was very honored. The Arizona College of Obstetrics and Gynecology recently gave me the 2022 Legislator of the Year Women's Health Champion Award because of exactly these kinds of efforts that we make down there at the Capitol and help to take care of some not so desirable legislation. So thank you very much.
All right, and Ms. Westbrook.
Well, depending on what the legislature looks like is going to determine kind of how we tackle this, right? Next legislative session, assuming it's the worst, right? That we don't take the majority. I think we need to go back to the roots of like the civil rights movement and many of the people that have fought in these struggles historically, right? I was moved a few months ago when U.S. Representative Cori Bush took to the steps of the United States Capitol and occupied that space after the eviction moratorium was lifted by the CDC. It was deemed like the Supreme Court struck it down, right? What she did is she used her position of power, right, to influence public discourse. And that's what I think that we need to do. She slept on the steps of the Capitol for a week. What came from that? National media, national attention. And what happened? The eviction moratorium was extended. Not as long as we wished, but it was extended. So she used her position of power in co-governance with community organizations and directly impacted communities to draw attention to the issue to fix it. As a state representative, as a community activist and a community organizer that has been in this community for years fighting, that's what I'll do. I will work in co-governance with community organizations and directly impacted communities to combat attacks on abortion access, because abortion is a human right. Abortion access should be expanded. We should not be afraid to say the word abortion. But the reality is we've stigmatized the word, and that needs to end. That's why I've always been a champion for Planned Parenthood. My previous runs for office, I was endorsed by Planned Parenthood. And I'll continue to fight for this issue because we as human beings should be able to control our own bodies. And that's what any of these attacks on abortion are, right? They're attacks on our personal autonomy. And that's just wrong. That's what authoritarianism is what it is. So that's what I'll do as your state representative. And I'll fight like heck against any attacks on abortion access.
All right, Ms. Tyree.
Thank you. I echo the sentiments of everybody here thus far. Abortion care is healthcare, and it is a choice, and it is a right that a woman should be able to have with her doctor and her doctor solely. Have right to healthy and quality and attentive physical health care through that process, and they should have a right to mental health care during pregnancy, post-pregnancy, through the entire process, because what that does, regardless of her decision, it changes her body, it changes her mental, it changes her entire life. And we as a community have to come together and say, we're going to protect our women. We are going to protect our sisters, our mothers, our best friends, and it's time that we fight that way. It's just, to me, this is one attack of many that are going to come. This is just the beginning. And if we don't stop it here, if we don't fight for abortion access, we're going to be fighting for everything else as well. So, like I said, I echo everything that everyone else has said, and I too will be fighting for you at the legislature for women's rights.
All right, Representative Liguori.
Thank you. So just to say it one more time, because we all believe in it, I think on this call today, healthcare is a human right. Abortion is healthcare, and healthcare and family planning are private between a physician and a person. So I, as a sitting legislator, should not be included in these conversations. My husband is a physician, and he is a radiologist that reads the scans of women that come in that have ectopic pregnancies or miscarriages. And we have a lot of conversations about abortion in the morning over breakfast, seeing this legislation that's come through. And from his personal view is he doesn't even understand how any of this legislation is legal based on how it's written and the amount of weeks and who gets to decide. He is the one that makes these decisions. And he says it is not solid at all when he's saying it. It's the best guess at any given day. So the legislation is wrong, but we don't need to argue the legislation because it's not about the 15 weeks or the 6 weeks. What it is about is the government, a faction of the government, this conservative, religious, ideological, extreme far right coming in and saying, we get to control your body. And by doing so, we can continue to have the power and we can wield abortion as a weapon to suppress and control. And so I think that that is the fight that we are having right now. And I believe I have seen almost every one of you on this call right now at the Planned Parenthood rally last week, at the impromptu one when the leak came out the week before that, of taking our fight to the streets and using our voices and being down there amongst women that already did this before in their lifetime and talking to them, being like, did you think that we were going to be back down here, 50 some years later, as moms and grandmas now worried that their grandchildren are going to lose their rights again and they're going to have to go through this. So I do not think a person's body should be a part of the government. I do not think it's what Americans want. 60% of Americans think abortion should be legalized. 60% of Arizonans do too. So I don't see this as we're doing this for the betterment of society. This is a extreme conservative faction, the religious right, trying to control our society. And as a mom, I'm pro-abortion, abortion, contraception pills, and believe that a person has an unalienable right to their own body. Thank you.
All right. And Representative Longden?
Thank you, Nate. I agree with everything that's been said. And many, many years ago, when I was still living in Chicago, I was among the young women who marched against Henry Hyde with coat hangers when the Hyde Amendment became law and said that federal dollars couldn't be used to pay for abortion services. Any person who chooses abortion should have safe and free access to abortion as they would any other part of their health care. I want to talk, since I'm not going to say anything new in terms of how we're going to deal with this, I want to also remind the folks who are watching what else is at stake here. I'm a woman who had 11 miscarriages before the birth of my son. And we will be investigating miscarriages. We will be intruding at a moment of absolute grief and pain and shock with criminal investigations and perhaps even criminal prosecutions of individuals who have miscarriages. Next up is outlawing contraceptions. Contraceptives, because we're getting to a place where it will be at the point of fertilization. So birth control pills, is that an IUD? I'm not the doctor. Shaw's the doctor. He can tell you which forms of birth control would not be effective at the point of fertilization. Arizona, enshrined in our Constitution in 1912, is a right to privacy. And that right to privacy that is already part of our Constitution is the basis to build our own protections for abortion here in this state. The ruling is going to kick this back to the states. It says that the argument of privacy is false. It doesn't actually exist. And so other things are going to be endangered following that, including same-sex marriage, contraception, other things as well. Transgender care may be next on the chopping block from the feds. So taking care of this at the state level, making sure that we have the right people in the legislature. Mr. Marquez said earlier, making sure that we get to that majority. That's why I'm the board chair of the ADLCC, to work to get to that democratic majority so that we can pass the laws that reflect our democratic values. And that's going to be equally essential here. Thank you.
All right. And we'll start with Representative Shah for the next question. The question is actually about a bill you introduced. That makes sense, I guess. A bill was proposed this year to ban conversion therapy and outlaw discrimination against LGBTQ Arizonans, with exceptions for religious organizations. Would you have voted for this bill if it had reached the House floor, and why or why not?
Thank you. So this bill was brought to me by the leaders of the local LGBT community. I am very proud to have known for a very long time Angela Huey, who heads up the One Community Group, as well as Michael Soto, who heads up Equality Arizona. The purpose of this was to talk about, to introduce the concept of a statewide non-discrimination ordinance for all of our LGBT folks. And this was based on a lot of the work that Angela and Michael had done by going to other states in the country and looking at their model and saying, wow, this really works. This provided a lot of protection for our LGBT community. Specifically, people are being denied housing. People are being denied employment. People are being denied public accommodations. And that is all across the state, and that's not right. I mean, it's 2022, and it's time to put an end to that. In Arizona, that's still the case. There are some cities that have that kind of ordinance in place, but we do not have that statewide. Over the last few years, I have introduced that bill again and again, as well as a bill to remove the one man, one woman amendment in our Constitution. And I've been a very strong supporter of our community, because this LGBT community, because it's centered in our district. So when these folks came to me and they said, look, we really want to introduce this as a concept, and it also included a ban on conversion therapy. I said, okay, so I agreed to sit down with them, talk to them about it. And we sat down and had a stakeholder meeting and you know, with a lot of the parties that were, quite frankly, on the other side. And the reason we brought this forward as an informational hearing is because we wanted to get a big dialogue out there. So it was myself and Speaker of the House, Rusty Bowers. We co-chaired this as just an ad hoc committee, as an informational hearing. And we brought, and by the way, I included the chair and the former chair of our LGBT caucus in the Democratic Party, or excuse me, in the House, into this. And we said, let's have a hearing to hear what everybody had to say. There were people who were very, very much in support. And then there were some people that were very much opposed, but we wanted to make sure that we got it out there and had a chance to hear it. This was monumental in that this kind of discussion is actually being had for the first time in the Arizona legislature. This subject would not have happened without this kind of stakeholder process and the trust that we built. So again, it's a process. It's a process of introducing this and getting it out there and making sure we hear every voice. And we heard a lot of voices that were opposed to the bill. So the bill won't be moving forward for this year. We were hoping that what we can do is just reduce a lot of the fear on both sides and bring people together to discuss solutions and openly talk about it. From the medical side, I mean, one of the reasons that I particularly was, I think, chosen to be part of this is because I am a physician. And for me, the idea of doing something to hurt someone is wrong. Our credo is first do no harm, and conversion therapy is harmful for people. And therapy is done by a therapist, a person who is licensed by the state to do that kind of conversion therapy. And that should never be. And so that's why that bill targets that particular practice and not the religious folks. So that was basically what that bill did, what it does. And it was a very, very robust hearing. We took a lot of that feedback, all of us together, and we will be sort of back to the drawing board to listen to more people and think about how we can possibly move something forward in the future. And that's the status of the bill.
All right, I'm going Ms. Westbrook?
Thank you, Representative Shaw, for acknowledging that conversion therapy is harmful, which means that any conversion therapy, whether done by an individual or private institution or the church, is unacceptable. The church is unacceptable. Any form of discrimination, any form of conversion therapy is unacceptable. This bill was disguised to keep abusive practices and can continue rabid discrimination against LGBTQ plus people. That's the reality. As somebody that is an activist and have been fighting for LGBTQ people in this state for a really, really long time, I can tell you that none of the stakeholders that I know that are active in our community were involved in this conversation. Trans Queer Pueblo, HRC was against this bill. ACLU Arizona was against this bill. Many, many prominent organizations have been out against this bill. It's a bill that is going to be copycat. It's going to be put in other legislatures across the entire United States, right? And it's going to continue to give exemptions for the church so they can discriminate against LGBTQ plus people. It's a very harmful bill, and I hope it never comes back again. Because the reality is, people in faith should be given the same amount of rights as anybody else. There is absolutely zero compromises on LGBTQ plus equality. Zero. Nobody is left out. And that's the reality. And any bill that kind of comes off vaguely like this, with vague terminology, with the word fair, that can be taken by the church or taken by a Republican legislator any way that they want, is unacceptable. I hope this bill never comes back. If you do one Google search, you'll find that this bill, similar bills, were introduced all across the country by the Mormon Church. So I encourage any viewer to watch this, that's watching this, to do a little bit of research. And you'll find the same thing. And I hope you agree. As a representative for this district, I am a member of this community. Right now, there is no representation for us at the state capitol. And there is no trans legislator ever been elected to the state capitol. If you elect me to be your state representative, I will fight for our community. I will break that glass ceiling to make sure that trans legislators have somebody that they can look to for inspiration, and encourage them to run for office. Because the reality is we need people of all backgrounds, all gender identities in office. So I ask you to vote for me, and I'll fight for our community when you do.
All right, Ms. Tyree?
Thank you so much. So disappointed. I'm so disappointed that this came from one of us in the gayest district in the state. It's just so disappointing. To answer your question, would I vote for this? Absolutely not, ever. I would never vote for this. I would never support this. Conversion therapy is harmful, it's dangerous, and it does so much trauma. There are so many studies that show the harm that it does. In fact, there are articles about the Medical Association not supporting conversion therapy, and yet a doctor supported it. It blows my mind. I echo Brianna, and as a member of the LGBTQ community, I too will be fighting in the Senate to absolutely not ever allow anything like that to come forth. And I can tell you, whatever members that you had at your meeting were not members of the community, because the party is very separate from the people who are actually in the community. I'm a member of an admin of a number of groups, and none of those people had any idea that this was even happening. So who got the invite? Because it surely wasn't us. We would have been there, and the answer would have been no. So I agree, never. I will never support that bill.
Representative Liguori?
Thank you. So, part of what got me most activated politically is just, as a mom, worried about our children continue to grow up in a world where we treat people as a group instead of as humans. And I think that we've gone through a really rough 4 years of a president activating discrimination and racism, and making it seem like it's okay to stand for these kinds of things or to try to promote them, especially in these state legislatures. So I would not support any legislation that harms a person's ability or opportunity to live a happy and healthy life, especially with the trans and our LGBTQ community and the rights that they deserve. But, you know, in looking through this, it also makes me sad because this isn't new. Like we've been here before, and I spoke up to this on the floor. We have the opportunity to learn from history. We've gone through this with gay rights. We've gone through this with segregation. We can do better, and we're unwilling to do better. And I think that is because a party is scared of losing their power. So they're discriminating against whatever marginalized community that they're afraid of. And right now, unfortunately, that's the trans community that we've seen this year with legislation that's come through. I try to tell my colleagues, ask questions. Don't be afraid of things you don't understand. If you don't know a certain type of person, let's go out and meet one and have lunch and be able to build these bridges and understand that no one is different from any one of us. So anything that is harmful, legislation or otherwise, is something that I would not support. I think that there is enough struggle in the world for us as legislators to be the one adding additional burdens to it. Makes me sad when we should be doing exactly the opposite. So that's my stance. Thank you.
All right, Representative Longdon.
Thank you, Nate. There's no room in this world for conversion therapy. There's no need for it. There's just no need for it. Our LGBTQ community is perfect just the way they are. I have several friends who have been subjected to conversion therapy, and the trauma that it created in their life is horrific. I can tell you back in 2013, I think it is, I was chair of the Mayor's Commission on Disability Issues when Mayor Greg Stanton decided that he would update our city's non-discrimination ordinance. And he would update the language around people with disabilities. Instead of using arcane terms like handicapped, we'd use more appropriate language like people with disabilities, because how you name someone or something carries weight. And because of my position, I was part of the leadership team that moved that non-discrimination ordinance forward. I was the citizen chair of the first public hearings, and then I was on the dais for all 5.5 hours at the Orpheum. I was the first person that spoke about the non-discrimination ordinance. I talked about what it meant to be able to use a bathroom, because as a woman with a disability, it's an issue that I face all the time. So we're going to continue to support our LGBTQ community in every way possible. We're going to continue to protect our LGBTQ community from unwarranted attacks. And I think that we all share the same democratic values of wanting to honor and respect our LGBTQ community. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Marquez.
Yeah, to answer your question pretty directly, no, I would not have voted for this this piece of legislation. I echo all the comments here tonight. You know, as a veteran of the U.S. Army, I've served with gay service members. I've served with trans service members, and you know, I've met an old Vietnam veteran, Marine Corps veteran. And he said, you know, I don't care if you're gay or straight as long as you can shoot straight. And I think it comes down to, you know, making people feel included wherever they are. And certainly anything that looks like conversion therapy does not, you know, reflect the values of District 5. It does not reflect the values of the majority of Arizonans. I think it, in a 31-29 legislature, I think it represents the values of Kathy Herod and Nancy Bartow and the Center for Arizona Policy. Those are the folks that are looking to find Democrats to cut deals. Those are the folks that are looking to get one over on the community. And sometimes they do it discreetly, and sometimes they do it very out in the open and out in the public. As a school board member for Phoenix Union, I was proud to work with the Human Rights Campaign to make sure we passed a resolution calling for the governor to repeal the recent law banning transgender youth from participating in youth sports. Again, it's about whatever phase you are in your life. How do we make people feel as included as possible? I think it's very clear that one party is using the cultural wedges to divide our community. I knock on doors as a candidate. I've knocked on doors, leading the organization Vets Forward. And what I remind people all the time, especially under the last 4 years of the previous administration, is that the most important thing that we can remind everybody is that we're all Americans. We're all Americans first. And we need to find ways that we protect the values of what it means to be an Americans for everybody. And equality matters for everybody, not just the radical right who thinks that this is their version of how everybody should live and operate. And I think that's what we need down at the legislature is folks in this legislative District 5 that will fight back and call for repeals. The statement I put out after we put out our resolution against the transgender youth participating in youth sports, said this has to be fought in the courts, whether we're elected officials or whether we're fighting it back with legislation and getting to a Democratic majority. And I think getting to a Democratic majority is absolutely key for every single thing that we've talked about here tonight. And I think the ADLCC has done incredible work. But I think over the next 4 to 6 years, we need a much more aggressive strategy to compete across the state for a Democratic majority.
All right.
Nate, since I was referenced.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you that. You have anything you want to respond to?
Yeah, I think the bill's been mischaracterized. I think that, look, first of all, it bans conversion therapy. The bill bans conversion therapy. I don't believe that religious organizations can do conversion therapy because therapy is done by a therapist. That was the discussion we had. And that was the stakeholders that came forward. That's what we talked about. Because it has to be a licensed person from the state. We cannot have somebody from the licensed profession doing this. And so this bill would have provided protections for the entirety of the vast majority of the LGBTQ community across our state, which is why the local leaders of our community brought me this bill. That's what I want people to understand. If there was a small exemption created for, is it a perfect bill? No. That's why we had the discussion. But that small exemption creates a massive, right now, a therapist could do conversion therapy. Right now, you can discriminate against somebody for being gay, for housing, for public accommodation. That's not right. And so that's why the stakeholders brought that bill forward. And I want to make sure that we characterize this right. It was a ban on conversion therapy. I'm against conversion therapy, and that's what we had. So I want to clarify that. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think it's time for closing statements now. Ms. Tyree, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Nathan, thank you so much for hosting and taking care of all the things today. We appreciate you so very, very much and look forward to working with you, continuing to work with you in the future. Everybody, my name is Sarah Tyree. I am your LD5 State Senate candidate. I would like to point out that there are 3 of us on the ballot and there's only 1 of us here today. I believe that this is a campaign for the people and by the people, and that's why I'm here, to represent you, because I am a part of you. I believe that our district is moving forward and we are so diverse and we are so young, and I believe that I represent that in its totality. I look forward to knocking on your door, having a conversation with you. I look forward to earning your vote on August 2nd. And thank you so much again for having us. You can learn more information about me at tyree4az.com. That's TYREEFORAZ.com.
All right. Representative Liguori.
Yes, thank you. And thanks to all the candidates and Nathan for you. I think that the questions that we touched on today are not just the ones that are important to our district in LD5, but are the most important ones to our state right now. So I am running for re-election to continue to defend our rights, our environment, our public schools, and our kids. And the first thing that you should know about me is that I am a helper. I'm a doer. I always have been, and I always will be. So as a lifelong Democrat, I've always supported our values in our party, just like everyone on this call does. I'm a PC, and in my old district, we helped get Teacher of the Year Christine Marsh elected to the state Senate through a lot of hard work. I know what it's like to go out and flip those districts that we need extra seats in. Last summer, I spent the whole summer carrying petitions for voting rights and education referendums. But I wasn't done because we're not done. And I just decided I'm not going to sit on the sidelines anymore and watch the state where I grew up, the state where my parents grew up, and the state where I'm now raising my children continue to backslide and pander to this extreme faction of the conservative party. So my background in economics and finance and real estate, I'm committed to work as a state representative for you full time. This has turned out to be my dream job, and I will never stop fighting for our rights, for the right to vote, for the right to start a family when and if you choose, for equality. I will never stop fighting for clean air and water, and for schools that prepare our kids to compete in the next century. I have been outspoken this session, my first session down there, about returning to a reality where we legislate for the betterment of people's lives, not the culture's wars, not whatever the ideological point of the day is, but bringing forth solutions for people's lives tomorrow. I want to go back down there to continue with my success of fostering bipartisan discussions, where I push back strongly against the hate and fear being sown into our legislation, but I'm able to build a bridge of communication to be able to express that to members I work with and across the aisle. So this is why I'm running, to bring my logic, my empathy, and equity to the people of our state, and to continue to make my LD5 district proud. Thank you so much for the time.
All right, Representative Longdon.
Thank you, Nate, for being a great moderator tonight, and thank you to Clean Elections. Thank you to everyone who stayed with us tonight. And it's an honor to be here with my fellow, campaigners, candidates. My name's Jennifer Longdon, and you've heard my story. 18 years ago, I was paralyzed in an act of random gun violence that remains unsolved. And as a result of that, I clawed my way back for survival. While I was in a medically induced coma, I lost my health care. While I was in that coma, I lost custody of my son. I lost my home. I lost everything I knew about my world in that moment. And as I clawed my way back from that, I learned about the struggles that everyone faces, and I've kept them in my heart all the way along. I continue to struggle with housing insecurity. You know, legislators make $24,000 a year. And in my first term as a legislator, living on solely that $24,000 a year, I had my power and water shut off multiple times. I was almost forced out of my home at that point in time. And I got really lucky and found a great job that saved it all for me. But I've lived, as many people do, struggling to make ends meet, choosing between food and medication, utilities and mortgage payments. And I'm going to fight for everyone to continue to make sure that they have the best that we can give them. People make prudent decisions, and they're one illness, one accident, one unemployment away from falling through the social safety net. And we can do better for our people. I'm going to continue to work to end gun violence. I'm going to continue to work on abuse and neglect in long-term care facilities. And absolutely, I'm going to continue to work on civil rights issues. These are the issues that I started working on here in our community and have taken me around the nation to work state by state. And I'm thrilled to have brought it home. And I've been serving here for the past 2 terms. And I'd like to continue because I'm just not done. There's a lot of work left to do. You can learn more about me at jenforaz.com. And I would appreciate your vote in the upcoming primary. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Marquez.
Yeah, thanks, Nate, for moderating tonight. Thank you to all the fellow candidates. I like to say the Fighting Five for District 5. I think one of the issues we didn't talk about tonight that I think is really important and consequential for this election cycle and this moment in history is voting rights. That's a big reason why I jumped into this race when I saw the insurrection on the Capitol on January 6th. At that point, prior to that day, I think a lot of smart people have been warning for a long time that the rhetoric in politics was getting violent. But under the previous administration, with very authoritarian tendencies, that rhetoric was normalized, and it gave people permission to take the rhetoric and turn it into actual violence. And people died that day. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that it was an insurrection on our Capitol. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that Wendy Rogers and Anthony Kern and Mark Fincham, who now wants to control our entire election system as Secretary of State, Arizona is ground zero for nefarious actors trying to dismantle our democracy. Whether it's the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, we need to fight back to make sure that our democracy and our republic continues to exist. And that's not hyperbole. I think that is reality. Outside of voting rights, without our voting rights, how do we put more money into education? Education is the most foundational thing we can do as a state to invest in our future. Without our voting rights, how do we fight back and do the type of work that needs to be done to make sure everybody has access to healthcare, all healthcare, whether that's abortion care or any other healthcare for all people? How do we fight back against gun violence? I've been serving with Moms Demand Action in every town for gun safety on their National Veterans Advisory Council. Those are all red flag laws. We need to close the loopholes, but we can't do any of this without a Democratic majority. And I think what District 5 voters in a Democratic majority district have to ask themselves is, which of us out of the 5 is going to work every single day to get on the phone and raise money for Democratic candidates in other districts? Which of us is going to get on the phone every single day and raise money for whoever our nominee is running for governor? That is what it takes to get to a Democratic majority. It's not glamorous. It's not rocket science. It's hard work, and it's phone calls and knocking on doors every single day, changing the dynamics at the legislature. And I promise you, I've been doing this since 2004 when I was 21 and a field organizer for John Kerry. I am on a dedicated mission to turn Arizona blue, and I'm going to make sure to do that as your next state representative.
All right, Representative Shah.
Thank you. Thank you to all the participants here, all the candidates, and to you too, Nathan, for moderating. I have been serving this district, or LD24, for 4 years, and I respectfully request your vote for LD5. I think that the last 4 years have been very educational. Again, I was somebody who considered myself more of an ordinary citizen before getting into politics, and then coming in there, looking behind the curtain for the first time, and seeing how the place works. There was a lot that I learned. I learned about how to be the most effective I could be. I have looked at the last few years, the last 4 years of working down there, as asking myself, what can I do to make a practical, tangible difference in the lives of the people I serve? How to be the most effective to put legislation actually out on the books that would change people's lives. That's hard to do in the kind of situation we're in. We're in the minority in the House, we're in the minority in the Senate. The IRC has changed things so that they say that it tilted a little bit toward the GOP. And that's disappointing, because we were 1 seat away in the House and the Senate. And we'll see what happens in November. I hope we all get out there and get us a Democratic majority. But over the last 4 years, despite being in that minority position, I have managed to move bill after bill after bill in that legislature through. So last year, the governor signed 4 of my bills into law. Many of those bills this year, so far, 4 of mine have been signed into law, and there are several more coming. And most of those came and started with a constituent who called me and said, hey, there's a problem. Can you help me? One of the ones I'm super, super proud of is that a woman called me and said, my son is in prison. I can't get access to the medical records, and they're mistreating him. And that's a human rights abuse issue. And I said, okay, let's do it. let's get out there and let's do it. And I pushed that bill through the House 59-0. It's over in the Senate. We're still working on it. There were some concerns that came up, but we're continue to working through the process to make sure that bill gets to the governor and we fix this for her. There was a bill that came last year because a man had his son had muscular dystrophy, and he said, "Hey, the prior authorization process is really causing delays for my son, and it's causing so much problems in care." So I said, "Okay, let's work on that too." Again, bipartisan, pushed it through, and got the governor to sign that. I had a bill this year to stop in our neighborhoods. I kept hearing fireworks. Can you please do something about fireworks? So I put a bill together. We did it in a bipartisan fashion, and the governor, it was a negotiation. Not everybody was for it. We got it to the governor again this year to stop fireworks after 11 p.m., which is, again, a tangible difference in people's lives. This is what is important to me. This is what I've been proven to be effective at, is getting these things, your voice, the voices of Democratic leaning districts, and putting them into actual law that will make a tangible difference in people's lives. There's a few more to go still that I we didn't get to talk about a lot about, but I hope that I can continue to do that, because I think that it is important that our voices, the voices of our constituents, really get heard. And it starts with meeting with them one-on-one. And I've committed to knocking doors. And you've seen my commitment over the last 5 years, 14,000 doors. That's just me. That's not even counting like all the others that knock for me. And I will continue to do that. I will continue to be at the doors and speak to you one-on-one, and continue to maintain that two-way communication, because I want to make your voice count at the Capitol. That's my commitment to you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you all, and thank you for watching.
All right, Ms. Westbrook.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. You got a chance to hear a lot from a lot of different candidates, and I asked to be one of your 2 votes for the State House. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote for you. Like I said in the very beginning of this debate, this is where my life started. My little brother was born at St. Joseph's Hospital. Many of the issues that we spoke about tonight are actual issues that I've actually experienced as a representative, well, a future representative, I hope, of this district. And I will bring that lens to my policymaking. And I will work with community organizations and legislators across the aisle. Communication is my strength, and I would like to use that skill that I've developed through the years, working with small businesses and young families, to actually create change. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote to end the influence of special interests and corporations in our political system. As I said in the very beginning of this call, a district like this could be a clean elections district. All it takes is commitment from all the representatives in the district that they're going to run clean. We know that this is possible. We can look at LD 26 and look at other districts across the state that have accomplished this as well. It just takes the courage to say no. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is expanding union power everywhere. That is why this campaign was endorsed by the Painters Union, and right now is the only candidate. I'm the only candidate that's actually endorsed by labor. And I believe that's because of my long history fighting for labor unions. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote to increase infrastructure projects and that emphasize sustainability, equity, and access for everyone. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote for the Green New Deal and the principles of the Green New Deal: jobs, justice, and decarbonization. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote for public safety, increasing access to education, jobs, healthcare, and community-based programs. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote for making housing permanently affordable, inclusive, and widely available. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote for healthcare as a human right. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote to make sure that public colleges and universities are tuition-free, and that we fight to cancel all student loan debt. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote to ensure that immigrants are treated with dignity and respect, and we use our position of power to advocate for a pathway to citizenship for all our immigrants. A vote for Brianna Westbrook is a vote to expand democracy, to expand access to the polls, and to protect our right to vote. So in conclusion, my name is Brianna Westbrook. I ask for your vote on August 2nd. Ballots will be arriving in your mailboxes in a few weeks. Please give me your chance to fight for you at the state capitol. I promise you we're going to create long-term change.
All right, well, this concludes our debate. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the August 2nd primary election. As a reminder, the voter registration deadline is July 5th and early voting begins July 6th. All registered voters, including independent voters, can participate in the primary. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official accurate voting information.